Hello, you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. I'm Max Bagishov, and these are the top stories. The General Prosecutor's Office claims the National Security Agency prevented a series of bombings in Almaty on March 24th. Mukhtar Ablyazov and his associates are indicated as main suspects. All photo and video recordings are now banned at the open trial over the Zhanozyan violence. Meanwhile, victims retract their claims towards the defendants. Aidos Sadikov, who was in prison 2 years ago on street crime charges, was granted a pardon 3 months ahead of his release. Sadikov will be reunited with his family in 2 weeks from now. A series of terrorist attacks were prevented in Almaty, said yesterday Nurdaulet Suindikov, the official representative of the General Prosecutor's Office, during a special press briefing. Suindikov noted that the prevented bombings are linked to the associates of President Nazarbayev's main opponent, politician and businessman Mukhtar Ablyazov. Supposedly, the attacks were to be carried out by Ablyazov's former head of security Alexander Pavlov in cooperation with Muratbek Ketebayev, the civil activity fund president and one of the leaders of the oppositional party Alga.
Political terrorism. The term was not been used in Kazakhstan before to define terrorist attacks. On March 28th, the General Prosecutor's Office reported that the National Security Committee prevented a series of blasts that were supposed to rock Almaty during Nowruz celebrations. These culprits have been revealed as well. Security officials are once again pointing towards the London trace. According to the main supervisory authority, Alexander Pavlov was the one to call the shots. In the past, he headed the security team of Mukhtar Ablyazov, the exiled banker who currently resides in Great Britain. Supposedly, Pavlov colluded with one of the Alga party leaders, Muratbek Ketebayev, who also lives abroad. Pavlov personally gave instructions to set up an explosion in the family park behind Sarayarka movie theater and to plant explosives at the pedestrian crossing along the Al-Farabi Avenue. Meanwhile, the security service officers are reluctant to share information. Despite the fact that the NSC carried out the counter-terrorism operation, its leadership assures it is not aware of the broad statements made by the General Prosecutor's Office. I'm not aware of it. I just returned from the business trip, thus I can't give any comments. The investigation assumes the criminals plan to get in touch with extremist organizations within and beyond Kazakhstan borders. For instance, one of the pro-government NGOs, which also actively condemns radical religious groups, says that the country was likely just a base for transnational terrorism. But after mass disorders took place in Zhanozyan, the outside forces might have begun intensifying their activity. What's happening right now is the game of political power. We believe outer political forces are trying to destabilize Kazakhstan. Luckily, today they are not yet well prepared to organize direct terrorist attacks and fully function locally. Up until now, only followers of forbidden religions have been accused of terrorism in Kazakhstan. Almaty as a target of political terrorism is an apparent precedent. One of the Akordo opponents, Walikhan Kaysarov, sees this as a political put-up job. He explains that since the government failed to return Ablyazov to the homeland, it gambled on the chances to convince the international community that he is a very dangerous criminal.
Yesterday morning, law enforcement detained Irina Mednikova, a reporter of the oppositional newspaper Golos Respubliki, the Voice of the Republic, as well as Yulia Kozlova, the head of the newspaper's distribution department. Both women were later summoned for questioning.
I was detained by 3 policemen at the entrance to my apartment block. They've brought me here without an explanation or reasons at all. They kept me here till 2, asking questions. When we were done, they called us in at 5 again, and when we came, we had to spend an hour there, and then we were released. We were told that if anything comes up, they'd phone us.
Following a number of visits to the National Security Committee, Tatiana Trubacheva, the Golos Respubliki newspaper chief editor, and Daniel Moldashov, its publisher, have now been interrogated as well. Yesterday, Tatiana Kovalyova reported the following information from the scene.
I'm reporting from the National Security Committee Department. Danyar Moldashov, the director of the publishing house that releases Golos Respubliki newspaper, is under interrogation since 7:30 p.m. and he is still in the office. We have no communication with him. His attorney is not allowed inside, and Alibek Nurbek, the head of the investigation team, does not take calls. We talked to the chief editor of Golos Respubliki newspaper, Tatiana Trubacheva. She is the last one to talk to Moldashov. I saw Danyar right here at the National Security Committee doorsteps for a minute and a half top. I barely had the time to ask when he was brought in and why. He said that it happened in the morning, supposedly because he forgot to sign something. We were not told who was investigating the case, and not a piece of information was given to us, absolutely nothing. Danyar also said he was brought as a witness, and it was not clear whether they were going to simply ask a few questions or put him through interrogation.
Arrests and interrogations of Golos Respubliki staff is directly linked to the criminal case launched in relation to the failed terrorist attack on Almaty, supposedly conspired by Mukhtar Ablyazov and his associates. This information was revealed to the web portal Respublika by its regular informant, who calls himself Aman Shabdrabayev. The information claims the criminal case rests upon the testimonies of Nurset Akilbayev, who could have been subjected to physical pressure by National Security Committee officers.
Terrorism charges against Mukhtar Ablyazov, Alexander Pavlov, Muratbek Itibayev and others rest upon the testimonies of Nusret Akilbayev. He supplied the information which served as the basis for calling your staff members Irina Mednikova and Yulia Kozlova up for an interrogation. Additionally, investigators are interested in a number of other people, including the Alexander Pavlov's ex-wife, whose house had just been searched. The investigation is also after Danyar Moldashov, the publisher of the Golos Respubliki newspaper.
Almaty experts expressed doubts about the information revealed in prosecutor's office statement. The mentioned accusations do sound shocking, however, no evidence to support them have been presented so far.
The street in Almaty could have virtually vanished. According to the General Prosecutor's Office, one of the blasts planned for March 24th was to take place right here. Many believe the official theory about the preparation of a series of terrorist acts in Almaty, as well as linking the people of the exiled banker Mukhtar Ablyazov to the case, raises more questions than answers and lacks credibility. However, the accusation of terrorism by the General Prosecutor's Office could well serve as grounds for asking the extradition of the old-time Accordo opponent. The so-called incriminating evidence that our authorities have sent to London was not enough to bring down Ablyazov. That is why they are now trying to come up with something even more discrediting, the damaging information that must force the West to respond in the right way. Basically, it should either extradite Ablyazov or at least create some unfavorable conditions for him. Representatives of Alga Party, which is currently pending registration, believe that accusations made by the General Prosecutor's Office against Muratbek Itibayev is nothing but a second wave of repressions targeted at party leaders. I believe it has something to do with the government's agony. I think that for a few months now, Nazarbayev's people and those who are planning to take senior positions after his leave are now openly waging wars with each other to get their hands on the economical wealth. Their hands are already full with this ongoing internal fighting. Political analyst Viktor Kovtunovsky says that any internal fighting does not prove that there is a presence of a real threat. In fact, apart from shocking accusations, Kazakhstan citizens were never presented with real facts. I believe that if the prosecutor's office makes such accusations, they must be based on sound evidence. The statement that was made contained neither arguments nor any evidence. The statement I read did not clarify what those accusations were based on. The outrageous accusations and the lack of details released to the public make sure that everyone understands it perfectly clear. The supposed explosions will definitely backfire in one way or another.
The U.S. ambassador to Kazakhstan has congratulated Alga Party leader Vladimir Kozlov with the past holiday of Nowruz. The postcard with greeting was delivered to the party's physical address. Kozlov's wife, Aliya Truzbekova, attempted to personally pass the correspondence to her husband. Greetings to Vladimir Kozlov. On the day of Nowruz, I want to send this postcard and calendar via the investigator to Vladimir Kozlov. Along with these presents, Aliya Truzbekova brought her 11th request to see her husband. According to Truzbekova, the request was already rejected on ground that she already saw Kozlov on March 5th in the hospital. Supposedly, this is enough and Truzbekova shouldn't ask for any more dates. It was also revealed that all of a sudden the pre-trial detention center management decided to make this a cleaning day, while the letters written by Vladimir Kozlov are being ignored by the law enforcement, even though according to the law, he has the right to receive and send letters. I was still able to send a postcard to Vladimir with greetings from the US ambassador to Kazakhstan and a calendar. Yesterday we received a greeting postcard addressed to our office from the ambassador, and I decided to give it to Kozlov via the investigator. By law they must give him their correspondence because it does not contain any state secrets, and I hope that they will not find any types of incitements, secrets or codes in this postcard, otherwise it will be absurd. But honestly, the recent actions of the National Security Committee are all illogical, and I have no clue what to expect from them next. Another oppositional politician, Aydos Sadykhov, has been pardoned by the General Amnesty Law, marking the 20th anniversary of Kazakhstan's independence. Nevertheless, the politician will have to stay in prison for another 2 weeks and will be reunited with his family only on April 13th. This is what Sadykhov's wife had to say on the matter.
The amnesty took effect on January 22nd. You can see for yourself, it took more than 2 months to finally reach Sadykhov. It is likely Zhovtis and Narymbayev have been released already. I think it took them so long because they simply couldn't decide whether to release Sadykhov or keep him behind bars. Finally, the issue was resolved positively. Of course, now they are trying to pass this as a humane thing to do, and it is true, but the amnesty was not personally granted to Sadykhov only. Other prisoners throughout the country were granted amnesty as well. Sadykhov's case was included because it was a little to medium severity. As a matter of fact, according to the law, he wasn't supposed to be incarcerated in the first place. Back in 2010, Sadykhov was tried and sentenced to 2 years in minimum security prison for beating up a passerby. However, the activist denied the charges and claimed he was the victim. According to the politician, it was he who was beaten up by the policeman, who even tried to plant a cell phone in his pocket and frame him for stealing it from the set-up victim. Nevertheless, Sadykhov's arguments were ignored, and on May 27, 2010, a criminal case was instigated against him for disorderly conduct. After Sadykhov lodged a complaint to the General Prosecutor's Office criticizing the police actions, he was charged with vigorous non-obedience to the police. Aydos Sadykhov is known for his irreconcilable position towards the course per used in the country. Furthermore, a few days before the incident, Sadykhov left the Public Social Democratic Party Azad and openly accused the party's chairman of playing pretense opposition, claiming they had ties with the president's administration. Last year, the politician's request for a suspended sentence was rejected. At the time, his advocates believed that the decision was politically motivated.
The second day of Zhanaozen trial began just like the first one, with a jam at the entrance and a ban on all photo and video recordings. Only one relative per defendant was allowed inside this time. Along with numerous reporters, this crowd completely filled the 2 additional rooms with TV rebroadcasting of the trial. The hearing continued with attorneys' petitions. The defense requested the judge to provide public organizations and media with the free access to all court proceedings. Judge Aralbay Nagishpayev, chairing the trial, declined the request, explaining that the video broadcast of the process is enough for the moment. The collective inquiry as to why police officers and state officials mentioned in the Zhanaozen case are not part of the trial seemed to be the most topical amongst others. Human rights activists claim it is necessary to engage them into the process for fair and transparent review of the case. This is totally different criminal case, and it's currently in the final stages of the investigation. Thus, there will be a separate trial. In accordance with the law, I made a decision to decline your request. The second part of the hearing was given to the prosecution, which had voiced the charges against each of the accused. Witness testimonials are not the only evidence in the Zhanaozen case, as short text messages and tweets of the defendants are also incorporated into the official records. Several additional restrictions were introduced for reporters. Now they cannot take interviews inside the building or use photo and video equipment even in the press center due to the order of the judge, who believes their media presence disturbs to the process. However, the press press briefing was provided by the Court Public Affairs Office, after all, in which MP Serik Ospanov, who arrived all the way from Astana just for this occasion, spoke to reporters. Ospanov told media about the transparency of the trial with seemingly patriotic tone. As we can see, the trial is underway and we are all witnessing how open the process is going. Everyone, including media and civil society, is represented, and I believe necessary conditions are created for the rule of law. In accordance with the indictment, the prosecution has announced that the total amount of damages incurred during December 16th events in Zhanaozen equals to $17 million.
The floor was given to the victims, and it came as a complete surprise when all of them, one after another, renounced the claims against the oilmen, claiming that defendants have nothing to do with arson and looting. The official representative at Ozenmunaygas suggested that the case on damages should be included in an ad hoc civil procedure. Three of the entrepreneurs who took the floor said that the damage must be paid not by the oilmen, but by the officials, by local administration, internal affairs department head, and Ozenmunaygas management, as they are the ones to blame for the disorders. Furthermore, many of the yurt owners wanted to dismantle them and leave the square on the evening of the 15th, as the conflicting rumors were circulating. Although the policemen prevented them from leaving the square, and ex-administrator Sarbapev issued the yurt owners guarantee letters worth $6,722 to make sure they would not leave the premise. I have absolutely no claims against these 37 people and don't want them to compensate me for the yurt, since they're practically my children. Instead, I will ask Sarbapev for the compensations, since he was the one issuing guarantee letters. These people are innocent.
Kazakhstan's Journalists Union is outraged by the ban on photo and video recordings during the Zhanaozen trial. In an Interfax interview, the union's chair, Said Kazimatayev, called the ban a violation and said the judge is reluctant to give the case publicity. I believe this is a violation. They should not have announced it as an open process then. Now we will be taking certain actions as well. At the moment we are examining the situation and then we'll likely make an official statement. The office of the recently launched website zhanaozen.net was visited yesterday by several suspicious persons who made several attempts to get inside under various excuses. Only the threat of a police call made the intruders leave for good.
Kasim Amanjolov, the website editor who was fined for the participation in the unauthorized protest rally on March 24th, says he's pressured by some high-ranking officers. In addition, Zhanaozen.net became subject to recent hacker attacks. For the last 3 days, our portal has been experiencing the most severe hacking attacks. It's not even 20 days from the moment it was launched. Facebook and My World accounts of our staff members have been compromised. They no longer can access their social network profiles. My mail has also been hacked. I can't get into my inbox anymore.
Ildahan Akhmetov, the Director General of the Kırgızılorda company BIS, described the current situation around the enterprise as raiding and hostile takeover. 2 days ago, the company's employees held a protest rally on the territory of the enterprise. In particular, he put the blame on the regional officials. The tender lost to the Chinese petroleum company Kazakhstan on December 27, according to Akhmetov, was arranged with gross misconduct. This is evident from the results of the Regional Prosecuting Office inspection, says the head of the contract organization. The inspection revealed numerous discrepancies in documentation of the winner company. Currently, Oilfield Service Enterprise is preparing to file a lawsuit related to the tender procedure violations. However, Akhmetov believes that it's not worth the effort to hunt for the truth in local courts. Their decisions are known to be biased. I believe the tender held on February 27 was thoroughly contrived and organized as a hostile takeover. It was a takeover of my company and my staff, and it was arranged to suppress the works. I can prove it at courts. I assume there will be another inspection. In any case, I hope that 700 people's plea will reach the higher level bodies, and when they turn attention to this hostile takeover, the truth will prevail. In his interview to Standard KZ, Director General Dildahan Akhmetov noted that acts of provocation are possible on the part of local officials. He believed that interested parties are good for anything, including blackmail. Akhmetov says that yesterday morning an anonymous letter was delivered to the company's address stating that 18 Uzbekistan citizens are illegally employed by the company.
Вот подписи людей.
Here are the signatures supposedly proving that 18 people from Uzbekistan illegally worked for company for many years. The provocations have begun. I think this was prepared by a group of people. I even don't understand the logic here. Mr. Zholdaspayev ordered Mr. Aljanov to resolve the situation, find those responsible and make a report. Who should he search for? There were no such people at all. Half the employees in my company is from Kızılarda region and the other half is from other regions of Kazakhstan.
50% моей компании работает в Кызылординской области, 50% моей компании, моих сотрудников полностью из Казахстана.
Talgat Zhakipayev, the deputy chair of the local administration staff, spoke to reporters last night about the possibility of hostile takeover and the rally of BIS employees. Zhakipayev asked not to escalate the situation and said the regional administration is ready to find employment for every worker left without a job. At the same time, the takeover issue was carefully avoided.
It is natural that market participants compete with each other. Bid conditions depend on the price and vice versa. In this case, the situation must be settled between the two companies which took part in the tender. I believe that it is inappropriate to involve rallies for bid victories.
Petro Kazakhstan is not ready to issue comments regarding BIS. The company's press service explained that so far it cannot respond to the prosecutor's investigation into revealed bidding violations and the situation around BIS, which appears on the brink of bankruptcy.
We received your message and I have passed it further on to the top management. I believe we'll reply to it by March 29. Right now they're out for meetings, so I can't really say what outcome there might be.
On March 28, several online publications printed an article written by the former chairman of the Green Party, Serikjan Mambetalin. The piece, titled "Oil Trader Revelations," uncovers the secrets of where and how Kazakh oil profits leave the country.
EM stands for exploration and mining, whereas the sale of oil is done by companies practically not controlled by Kazmunaygas. Most oil in the ports of Novorossiysk, Batumi or Primorsk is bought by Vitol Central Asia from Eurasian Oil, which is a daughter company of Vitol. When I was a trader at Vitol, I was one of many buyers of Kazakh oil in Black and Baltic Sea ports. When Eurasian Oil was sold to Vitol at the suggestion of Diaz Suleymanov and Daniel Abulgazin, the company became an export monopolist not only for KMG oil, but all oil extracted by Kazakh companies. The trial, which started yesterday in Aktau, inspired Mambetalin to write the piece, with the goal of exposing the true parties in fault over the situation. Aside the indication of management shortcomings in the oil and gas industry, the author intends to suggest some solutions. According to Mambetalin, Kazakhstan will inevitably face a crisis should the management of oil industry remain at the same level.
Soon Kazakhstan might be left with nothing. There was time when we hoped that our oil would pay for everything, but instead of investing oil profits and diversifying the economy as is done in other countries, said profits were foolishly spent or stolen. At some point we'll end up with depleted resources, failed economy and billions in debts. That is when Kazakhstan will be gone as a state, since there won't be any independence and we'll have to beg Russia to take us under its patronage in exchange for writing off debts. Alternatively, we could be split between China and Russia, but all of that can be avoided and rebuilt if we are to consider contracts with major corporations such as Chevron and Karachaganak.
Earlier this year, a group of Swiss MPs asked the Geneva Parliament to take action against the attempts of Kazakhstan's ruling elite to legalize their stolen assets in Switzerland after becoming citizens of the country. Mostly the issue was linked to Timur Kulibayev's wife Dinara, the daughter of President Nazarbayev, who was granted a Swiss residence permit. Recently, the Geneva Parliament adopted the decision to make the government act on the issue.
The Parliament of the Geneva Canton in Switzerland has taken a decision calling for immediate action from government in order to stop violence incited by authorities in Kazakhstan. According to the deputies, the main tool to influence Kazakhstan higher authorities is the limit that should be placed on the amount of funds that Nazarbayev and his associates are allowed to keep in Switzerland. The administrative authorities have been delegated to thoroughly investigate the circumstances under which residence visas were issued to Nursultan Nazarbayev's family clan. The parliament's decision resulted from the initiative of MPs who've earlier came up with an appeal, Artez la Carnage, translated as Stop the Slaughter. The slaughter referred to Nazarbayev's corrupted regime crimes against its own people, with the most outrageous example being December 2011 events when rallying civilians were shot by the police. kplus got hold of the details of the MP's initiative.
Je parle du président du Kazakhstan.
We can silently watch huge amounts of money being brought into the country and deposited into accounts in Swiss banks. We are concerned with the government's lack of action. We demand that administrative authorities take measures immediately.
Durant les années où j'ai travaillé dans cette organisation.
This is becoming rather a pressing issue. I'm well aware of the situation in the region, as I had worked there for many years as part of the international humanitarian organization. I've seen with my own eyes the emerging and forming of dictatorship, which is a monstrous system of violence and oppression. We must all realize that it is the dictatorship that is ruling the country now, and its ruling is maintained by violence. We cannot support the man in charge.
Nous avons été complètement sidérés.
De gens, donc, de travailleurs dans les mines.
I saw soldiers shooting at the demonstrators with machine guns, and now billions of dollars from that country is brought into our country and the money is deposited in our banks. I once was a witness to a similar situation during the military regime in Argentina, when their representatives came to our country on planes loaded with money. We can no longer allow this. We don't need the money made on corruption deals. The result of the Geneva Parliament debates was the decree by the legislative authorities demanding that the country's government restores order in this matter. Kazakhstan authorities must be deprived of the possibility to use both financial and political system in order to serve their own vested interests.
Swiss media is actively discussing the investigation of money laundering accusations against Kazakh president and his son-in-law. Le Matin notes that an account with $600 million linked to Kulibayev was suspended back in 2010. A new investigation related to money laundering of $400 million was launched just recently.
Another paper, Damian Public, places more emphasis on the Swiss bank system, which accepted ambiguous assets from the so-called Kazakh oil prince. Foreign media also writes about Kulibayev's wife Dinara, who is Nazarbayev's daughter and who received work and residency permit from Switzerland. As an example, the publication talks about the 75 million francs luxurious castle on the shores of the Geneva Lake, which Kulibayev bought for her wife. In addition, in his lawsuit, the attorney Bruno de Preys accuses the president of Kazakhstan of money laundering. In particular, the paper talks about $100 million the president made after selling Khabar television station. The money from this dealing was transferred to the Credit Suisse Bank in Zurich, supposedly through the Kazakhstan UN mission in Geneva.
This is all what we have time for. Join us tomorrow for more updates. Thank you for watching and goodbye.